The more I learn, the less I know. My opening quote is attributed to Albert Einstein. So, the premise of the quote, and I think the idea most people get behind the quote, is just the simple idea that when we explore a new subject, as we dig into it, we will often find there's a lot more to learn. In a way, personally, I find this kind of hopeful, but I like to learn. So, I like it when I find a new subject and I dig into it and there's a lot to explore. However, there can be kind of a side effect of this that can be a little bit complicating when we're trying to solve a complex problem. Now, in The Logic of Failure, author Deitrich Dorner talks about how sometimes when people are dealing with complex situations, some people are what I would call inappropriately decisive, and they are stubborn or they kind of refuse to gather information and they just make decisions and go. But in a lot of situations, we want to be decisive after we've got some information or after we have some understanding of a subject. So, on the one hand, Dietrich Dorner talks about people who are really decisive and they don't get information and they make bad decisions and they don't do well. On the other hand, some people, when they get a little bit of information, they realize they don't understand a subject, so they gather a little bit more information. They realize they don't understand the subject, they get a little more information, and they end up in this vicious cycle. What do we do about that? It is admittedly complicated, but I'll give you a couple simple strategies that you can try to apply. Understanding that dealing with complex situations, they're complex by nature, so nothing is guaranteed. One thing Dietrich Dorner recommends, and I know this is not going to be an option for everybody all the time, or some of the time, but something that can work out really well is delegating. Now, by delegation, I mean if you have subordinates that you can give tasks to that you trust, and it's a specific task, and they have the freedom to carry out that task, and you're not going to micromanage them, and they're going to go do it and let you know how it went, that's good delegation. Delegating, at least in my view, delegating is not giving someone a task so that you have someone to blame if it doesn't work out. So don't do that to people. Now, if you're not in a situation where you have people you can delegate to, you might have the option of having people you can go to for advice. Sometimes even just a little bit of advice from someone that understands the subject better than you can go a long way towards helping you make a good decision. Sometimes it may not even be someone that knows something better than you do, but maybe they just phrase things a little bit differently than you, and something clicks and it helps you go on the right path. Finally, if there's nobody else you can rely on and you're all by yourself managing a complex situation, you want to gather information, but if you get to a point where you feel like you're in that vicious cycle and you're getting indecisive, if you can, try to take a step back, look at everything you've collected, and see if you have enough information to start making decisions. Hopefully, whatever you're managing is a situation where you have the ability to evaluate it as you go so that if you need to change some direction, you can. I know that's not always possible, but as you're managing a situation, try not to paint yourself into a corner so that as you're going through it, if you need to change gears, you can. So, if you found this topic interesting and you feel like you want more information, I would encourage you to either check out the book, The Logic of Failure, or you can check out my podcast if you want a longer form discussion where I go into a lot more detail about the book and some of the things he talks about. So, in managing a complex situation, if you can, delegate the things you can delegate. If you can't delegate, see if there are people you can get advice from. If you're all alone in the wilderness managing a complex situation by yourself, just if you get to that point to where you're starting to feel overwhelmed and you're feeling indecisive, try to back up a little bit, look at the information you've gathered, and see what decisions you can make. And after that, if you're still not sure what to do, pick up a copy of The Logic of Failure and go read a book.